invitation. I came all the way over from New York to talk to you guys. Kind of, sort of. So what I wanted to start with immediately was something that Jim Romanesco quoted from an article I wrote about 2 months ago. What strikes me is how relentless the demands are on all of my reporter friends, no matter where they work. Who feels stressed out every day? Yeah, like 60% of you, and then the other 40% of you are lying, right? One of my favorite quotes that I often open on my computer is, when feeling overwhelmed by a faraway goal, repeat the following. I have it within me right now to get me to where I want to be later. And I think that's a really great way of thinking about planning and experimenting on new platforms. So let's get into it. Cool. So I titled my presentation Abundance because I'm a hippie, but also because I think that coming from a place of abundance when creating the news and trying new things on new platforms can be really powerful. And that's what I've done in my career. So hi, I'm Erica. My Twitter handle is GoodBurger. It's a joke about a movie in the US. But anyways. So I started my career in documentary film in LA and realized that documentary film was really difficult, especially as a 22-year-old. So then I moved to New York and got a job at The Economist. I was hired to build new businesses that would attract more people like me, aka young college graduates that wanted to care about the world. We looked at building a wine business. We looked at building a game, like an international development game. We looked at building a dating site. That would have been really interesting. We looked at executive education, and we ultimately decided to launch an education business, and I had zero interest in executive education, and ended up writing for .com. And because I tweeted my articles back in 2010, they assumed that I understood the internet. No, my background's in policy and science. Needless to say, I worked there for 2.5 years. We built out an internal innovation lab, did a lot of weird experiments. The woman that was talking about music before, we did a lot of stuff with music and thinking about how The Economist and music went together. And then ultimately, I left and joined this company, Storyful, who is actually here today. And I helped lead their growth in the US, and then we were bought by News Corp. And in the last few years, I joined NPR Sports. Everybody know what NPR is? Right? It's like BBC in the US. And I help NPR grow their listener base with people like me. And then I started 2 companies, Mileage Media, which helps people who travel between London, New York, LA, and San Francisco better connect, and then Catchpool is my proper startup. And we set out to build the weekend edition of the web, and I'll talk to you more about it later. So, this is where you guys get involved. Can you guess the average time spent in-app daily per user on Snapchat? 30 minutes. Instagram. The user base grew 60% in 2014 alone. Can you guess what percentage of users are from outside of the US? Anybody? Crazy. SoundCloud. Who listens to SoundCloud? Cool. It has podcasts too. How many of you knew that? Yeah. How many monthly users? Somebody shout it out. Yeah, this is nuts. All right, the New York Times shipped how many Google Cardboards for its first VR print piece? A million. Yeah. All right, here's mind-blowing statistics. It goes on mind-blowing up. 70% of 990 million users use WhatsApp daily. 1 million new users register each day. Can you guess how many messages are sent each day? Yeah. Guys, what are we doing? Yeah, that's right. If I were WhatsApp, I'd feel like that. Let's talk details. How many millions of these messages are photo messages? Yeah. Oh, this is why I have to click. 200 million are voice messages alone. Yeah, that's right. People are committing 195 minutes of their lives per week to WhatsApp. That's almost 28 minutes each day. Here's the math. 28 minutes on WhatsApp, 30 minutes on Snapchat, 20 minutes rising on Instagram. Plus Facebook and Twitter, well, anyway. Lucky for us, you can listen to SoundCloud and Spotify while doing other things, right? So that's 2 to 3 hours plus per day on social. So when are people going to read, watch, listen to the news with the abundance of all these apps? The real question should be where, not when, right? All right, case studies, or what I call how you can be better at your job. How many of you have roles where you're required to experiment across other platforms? Do you feel like you're truly allowed to experiment, or is it just what your boss says? Raise your hand if you feel like you're actually in a news environment where you're allowed to experiment. That's awesome, because like 5 years ago, I felt like a weird animal in the corner that was like begging to experiment, right? So this has changed a lot. The first experiment I ever did was a result of a massive fuck up at The Economist. Long story short, who knows that The Economist has podcasts? Okay, like nobody knew that they had podcasts 5 years ago when we told them they had podcasts. So we were not very happy with our podcast provider. We had this really ugly unit on site. It looked like a video unit, but it was just a podcast unit, and it was a disaster. And so I started running around as a music head saying, this thing called SoundCloud, it seems like it could be a good fit. Oh, and by the way, hosting your podcast on SoundCloud is free. To this day, it's still free. So I don't know how many of you have podcasts in here? Not enough. Okay, great. Well, anyway, so we put our podcast onto SoundCloud. We're saving 5 figures of money from the hosting charges. We're pushing the SoundCloud podcast through to iTunes, and so all the downloads on iTunes and on SoundCloud are counted in our SoundCloud metrics. And this happens within a matter of months. 827,000 followers. Now, who thought SoundCloud was just a music platform, right? That many followers. This is a screenshot from last week, so 1,400 tracks only, and an average per track of 100,000 listens. Who thinks that's impressive? Yeah. And guess what you can do? Monetize that, right? So you can sell advertising against that. So that was a big win. I helped the week go to podcasts. Apparently I like working for British publications. But we did these, what we called modcasts, mini podcasts, where we did stuff that was less than 10 minutes, and oftentimes it's like 3 or 4 minutes. And we started this 2 years ago, so it was like really before people were doing shorter form stuff. Again, no promotion, no ad spend, 422,000 followers. What they're doing now, which I found out this week, is actually starting 4 different separate shows because the podcasts are doing so well. How many of you listen to Serial? Right. I mean, the interesting thing about podcasts is that not only are young people, middle-aged, older people listening, but it's also a ton of women and the consumers that we actually want to maybe pay for our publications. So it's a really powerful way to engage with people. And it's easy. You throw stuff up on here, and it's easy to experiment, and there's not a lot of opportunity for failure. All right. But here's what I learned. You have to be early to a platform to get massive growth, right? So the Wall Street Journal Snapchat stuff this morning, they were early, right? You must be a fit for the audience even if you don't know it. So how can you measure fit over time? And then take risks, especially in the face of a fuck up, it can pay off. It did massively with The Economist. All right, case study C. Use platforms differently and appropriately. So when I worked at Storyful, these are all Storyful products, right? So that weird-looking 6-unit app on the right, on my right and your left, was an elections app we built at The Economist. It was the first ever HTML5 app. And we parsed video into it from Storyful. So they were verifying and vetting the YouTube content. And that was a really powerful way for us to get engagement. Our average in-app time was 18 minutes, and it was just about the 2012 elections. So then you see that trending screenshot, it's actually Facebook. You guys know Storyful has powered that Facebook feed on the right side with trending news, right? So that's a big win for them. And then obviously their Twitter, with 62,000 followers, just seeing what's happening in the world through the lens of news. Okay, so my company, Touchable. When I was at News Corp, I realized that the weekend edition of the paper had 3 times the circulation of the Monday through Friday editions. How many people knew that? Yeah, people still read the weekend edition. It's very interesting. I remember what do you guys call it? Sunday Times, right? The average time in app was 40 minutes or 42 minutes in tablet, right? So I was thinking to myself, where are my friends going on Saturdays and Sundays and on their lunch break when they want quality, but they don't necessarily care about the specific topic? What do you think the answer was 2 years ago? Anybody? It was Facebook. Yeah, it was Facebook. The people in this room happen to have particularly great Facebook feeds, I would argue. If you look at a lot of your friends' feeds who don't work in media and technology, it's a lot of like cat videos, right? Baby photos, engagement photos, at least my generation. So I said, let's build a different tool and let's lead with email newsletters. So we sent an email once a week with 5 links, and that was it. And I wanted to experiment and see if all these people who were spending 20 minutes a day on Instagram and who weren't paying for news would actually start to click through quality links. New York Times, Guardian, the Journal, the FT, all this, and it turns out they have for 2.5 years. So what we did that was a bit subversive is that we built a platform where you could only share 7 links a week, and you had to be invited to share. And it remains that way. And that powers our emails, which have grown without any marketing spend, to the point where we have a proper business now. What I've been talking about a lot publicly lately is kind of what some of you have mentioned today, which is how do we treat the way that we consume media, and how do we as media creators create media in such a way that we actually have this diet, right? Can we be more mindful about the media we consume in the same way that we're cautious about what we eat or picky about who we spend our time with? And so for us, not only are we trying to get people to consume quality content in their free time, but we're also getting them to think more individually as how they can be better about clicking on quality versus just quantity or clickbait. Case study E. Okay, so NPR. NPR, average listeners, late 30s, mid 40s, 50s. It's like kind of an old media brand in the States. A couple of years ago, the senior leadership at NPR decided some of our trustees are passing away. A lot of our listeners are going to be passing away in the next few years, and that's a bit morbid, but it's true. How do we solidify the future of NPR and get younger generations not only to check out our apps, which are award-winning, read our site, listen to our podcast, but then subsequently support us with membership, right? So NPR is a nonprofit. There's no paywall. You have to literally donate. And then we have this weird kind of system where there's like 250 member stations. Do you guys know about the member station model? Right, so you can donate to your member station, WNYC in New York, but you can also donate to NPR. So how do we distinguish between those? We had a serious business challenge. So we launched this thing called Generation Listen. And the idea was, how do we get younger people to listen together? And it was this notion of like breaking down the earbud thing that we have in society and saying, we're all listening to this stuff, but it's like secret. It's like we're listening to it in the closet, right? So how do we come out of this closet and say, we love listening, let's listen together, and let's actually talk about what these podcasts and what these shows are making us feel, right? So we came up with this crazy thing where we literally took a bus, like an old Volkswagen bus, across the US. Now I bet you would expect we would go to like New York, Chicago, Minneapolis, the north, right? We went across the south, and we went to Arizona, we went to New Mexico, we went to Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, all these places where people don't traditionally think our audience is. And guess what? We found our audience. So the notion that we actually sometimes build products just for the people that we think are already with us, we're actually forgetting a huge swath of people that want to be with us and want us to like ask them questions and engage with them. It was one of the most successful campaigns NPR ever did. It was also one of the cheapest campaigns they ever did. Sending 3 people in a bus across the US for 2 months is not an expensive thing to do, right? Now we have this thing called a listening party kit. So we send out every month an email to people who have subscribed to our updates, this like list of content that is relevant, that's worth talking about, that's worth me hosting a listening party, and then there's a hashtag and that's it, right? So for us it takes about an hour of time, but we're seeing all of this social engagement, we're seeing new people start to donate to NPR because of it. So So how do you think out of the box? And how do you also think offline, right? We did something that was offline and it drew a lot of traffic. Okay. So here are the three major things to think about, right? You want to set goals and also prepare how you're going to measure it. Oftentimes, the stuff that I've worked on, I forgot to figure out how to measure in the beginning, and then you're like trying to run and measure it while the campaign is going or what have you. Like set goals in the beginning and figure out how you're going to measure it from the start. And this is all like day 15, day 30, but draw up a report in the middle of the campaign or in the middle of starting this kind of social initiative and see how it's going. And then day 30, evaluate. A lot of the time, you need more time to keep doing stuff. So how do you figure out with all the people in your organization how to create more time if you feel like you need it? That's a big part of this. This is huge. You have to be yourself. And by yourself, I mean you, but I also mean your publication that you're with. So how do we think about our individual publications and employers and where they fit in the world of platforms? We can't all behave the same. Don't forget to be you. I think the Wall Street Journal, again, not to keep bringing up this example, but they nailed their own brand on Snapchat. They're not copying other people, right? So that's a huge part of it. Millennials love authenticity. That's how I feel about this. Okay, so I'm very into like interactivity, into people chatting with each other. So I'm gonna have you guys talk to maybe 2 or 3 people next to you. And we're going to take 8 minutes. I want you to share what platforms have worked for you. I want you to talk about what's holding you back and where you believe you haven't worked hard enough yet. And then I want you to talk about vision and goals for the future. Disclaimer, I didn't know that you guys are less collaborative over here. Somebody told me that you guys are a little bit more competitive in the UK between publications and stuff. So like, this is a very American approach, which like, break down the walls and share. But yeah, I think there are so many smart people here, and we're not talking to each other enough in a structured way. So go ahead and chat for a couple minutes, and then we'll group back together and talk a little bit more. All right, we're going to get back to me. Was that good? Did everybody feel like they learned something? Did everybody feel a little bit more like everybody's having the same problems, et cetera, et cetera? Great, cool. Americans are very collaborative. We're going to watch this video later. All right, so new platforms are eating our audience. Can we agree with that, right? We're not seeing our audience on our own platforms as much anymore. What if rather than getting scared, we came from this place of abundance, which I mentioned before, there are new people on them. The platforms are growing their own audiences, so we don't have to spend money doing it, they're doing it for us. We just have to be good on them, right? Experiment, set goals and measure, be unapologetically you, and reimagine your role. I want to talk a little bit about some of the platforms that have not been mentioned today, which I think is really interesting that we haven't talked about them. Does everybody know what Blendle is? Micropayments? I was just in Amsterdam for a couple of days hanging out with them. They just launched in the US. I don't know if they're going to do well because requiring people to go to a site and not only go there but pay is a really interesting challenge to assume that Americans want to do. But micropayments are going to change the face of our industry. There's a new company in the US called Atri, A-T-R-I, that you pay in advance, so you pay like $9.99, like the same amount you pay Spotify, and they run in the background, watch what you're clicking on, and then distribute the funds to the publishers that you're clicking on. How many of you knew about that? Yeah, nobody. Yeah, that stuff is going to change the game for us. So imagine not having to always just be driving our own subscriptions. Other people are going to start doing it for us. My company, obviously, no. Email newsletter. I talk about my company because I think email newsletters are really powerful, and they're hitting audiences that don't want to come to our sites necessarily, right? And there's value in summarizing the news. And eventually, my belief, and I'm an optimist, is that once we summarize well enough, we're actually going to get people to come to our site, or like us on Facebook, or engage with us on Snapchat. Spotify, how many of you know that they launched a video platform in beta? And they're working with news publishers, right? So I don't know why we're not talking about them. How many hundreds of millions of people pay for them globally and are using the service all day long every day? That's a huge opportunity. SoundCloud, how many of you know that they just launched a Spotify competitor? Okay. Anyways, they have 125 million songs, which is 3 times the amount of Spotify, of Apple. They have the largest catalog in the industry. They launched it 2 days ago, and they've got podcasts. So not only are people going to be paying for SoundCloud, I don't know how publishers are going to get some of that distribution, but there's a huge opportunity, like I said before, to build cheaply on SoundCloud. When I was at the Week, it took us a summer, it took us 3 months with 4 people to learn how to do podcasts well, to literally record it in a closet, and then to start publishing it on SoundCloud and monetizing. So I have to say, podcasts. How many of you have experimented with VR? Cool. So we're going to just see more and more of that, whether it's journalism, whether it's short form film, documentary, narrative stuff. Riot is one of the major studios that's doing news and VR. They were nominated for an Oscar for Best Short Film this year. So I think there's a huge opportunity to get into kind of empathetic journalism. We're calling VR the empathy machine. So exploring what you could do with that. And you saw the New York Times did it for cheap. And then lastly, how many of you have heard about bots? Okay. Yeah, so the big thing in Silicon Valley, and increasingly in New York now, is this kind of notion of a bot, this conversational interface where you can text a bot and it gives you links, right? So the same people that run Dig launched a news bot a couple weeks ago. You should all try it. It's kind of wonky, but it's early. But how are we going to be able to use bots to actually engage with our audiences? How many of you saw Quartz's chat with the news app that they launched? Yeah, so that's just the beginning. So while we figure out our WhatsApp strategies, our Nick app strategies, our Kick strategies, all these different places, the overarching thing will be bots. And Outbrain, how many of you think Outbrain is just that like annoying company that powers the recommendations at the bottom of a bunch of articles? Yeah. Secretly, they're like a multi-$100 million company that's building technology for news folks. They're building something called Sphere that's helping power recommendations, quality recommendations, and they're also doing this chatbot that any of us could actually start to work with them now to help power. So think about not only how you can experiment internally, but how you can use these other companies to push out your products. So you have to do less work, less time, and they'll help you build your audience. Let's watch a teeny bit. We have like 12 minutes. I want to watch a teeny bit of this video. Let's see.
So at Imagineering, we have this fundamental philosophy that it all starts with the story. Because I don't think there's ever been a more compelling set of story universes that we can inhabit than what we have in front of us right now. If you look around the Walt Disney Company, oh my gosh, I mean, the worlds of Star Wars or Marvel, all this work we're doing is kind of geared towards this idea of creating emotionally meaningful, transformative shared experiences in these environments and these places that you can't otherwise do it on your own. And not in a virtual way, not in a VR kind of wearing goggles kind of way, but in a no, I was really there. I touched that thing, I saw that thing, I smelled that thing, I tasted that stuff. It was real. And that's all Walt Disney wanted to do, was make magic real. And that's all we're still trying to do today, is find ways to give people these amazing experiences they couldn't possibly be having, but they are. So one of the key things that's really changing now in the way we tell stories is our relationship to the story. It used to be, sit back, shut up, I'm going to tell you a story. And now I think we're moving into a world where our guests can have more of an active impact, not just as a character, not just as a role in these lands, but in fundamentally shaping how the narrative emerges, and having as much or as little an active role in that as they want. The difference between authoring a story and authoring a story world is instead of telling a story, you're creating a value system, you're creating a setting, a context that allows multiple stories to emerge. So for the past 7 years, we've been trying things, experimenting, right? Our first experience we tried was something we called The Legend of Fortuna, where we allowed our audience to really direct the story. right? So wherever they went, we kind of followed along and tried to get one step ahead of them to support that story with prop settings and character. It was awesome as an experience. Our guests loved it, but it was super hard to create, and it would be almost impossible to do it at scale because for an audience of maybe a couple of dozen, we probably had 50 people behind the scenes in real time reacting to the story. But we learned a lot about how to engage people, how to invite people into the experience. And we had this one family, it's like a mom and a dad and two teenage boys, and the mom was like, am I gonna have to wear a hat? That was her thing, that was her line, right? Like, I'm in unless I have to wear a hat. At the end of that experience, that mom who started the day not wanting to wear a hat was the one with that sword against the throat of the bad guy. The real takeaway from that was not the fact that she made that transformation, but the fact that her family witnessed that transformation. Because when we did this debrief, the two teenage boys were like, this was awesome. We have never seen our mom play. And it was because of the way we kind of made context in which it was okay to play.
Okay. So I want to move that as a metaphor to what we have a duty as publishers to do, right? So now that we're on all these different platforms, we really have an opportunity to include our audience in part of our content creation. So how do we help people feel like they're being immersed in our site, in our content, in our missions as organizations? I don't have an answer, but I think that paying attention to what Disney is doing and paying attention to things like Sleep No More and what Punch Drunk, the theater company that's based here, does, and paying attention to stuff that's not seemingly directly in our field is actually really relevant. And the last thing before we take some questions, these are two of my favorite quotes as applied to our industry. Everyone who's ever taken a shower has had an idea. It's the person who gets out of the shower, dries off, and does something about it that makes a difference. And then the last one is the best. The Stone Age didn't end because they ran out of stones, right? So if, the journalistic Stone Age was way back when, what's our new age? How do you think about that? Yeah, so let's go to questions. If anybody has any. No questions? Okay.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What is your idea about platforms that are existing today and the future of platforms and sort of evolving platforms?
This one? What do you mean? Can you be more explicit?
Well, I mean, it won't be Facebook and Google for the rest of Apple for the rest of our lives. It will be something else. What will it be?
Look, I have a tough time with Facebook because I think everybody's experience on Facebook is so different, and they're the only ones that know what people are experiencing in each of their own feeds. I would love if they developed a feature where we can enter the Facebook feed as one of our friends and see what they're seeing. And I think that would be really trippy and wonderful. I think instant articles, look, the truth is people are reading, watching, and listening more than ever before, which is arguably a good thing, except for the fact that we still have 24 hours in the day. And so it goes back to this notion of how do we help people figure out how they want to spend their time? And that's what I do full time with my company, because I think it's not only our publishers going to have to figure this out, platforms are going to have to think about how they build their platforms, how they build algorithms, how they build user experience, the notion of the filter bubble if they're only allowing people to see stuff that they agree with, and what that does to society. Look at politics in America right now, there's a direct correlation. But it's going to take the individual too, waking up and saying, okay, this is crazy, I need to be more deliberate about what I'm clicking on, where I'm spending my time, why I'm spending my time there. And my belief is that if we as publishers show that we're being more deliberate and that we're building things that are different for different platforms and different audiences, then individuals are going to appreciate that. Did that answer your question at all? Talk to me after. Okay. Anyone?
I guess I'll just shout.
It's because we're recording it.
Thanks for that. Oh, sorry. It's a good shout. Thanks for that. I'm really curious about this slide in particular. I was wondering if it seems like you've given us a really interesting array of different sort of places to look for inspiration. And I think that we could probably all agree that lots of new and exciting things come out, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they land with audience or with people who actually create the news. So I'm wondering if you can sort of like simplify or be specific about which of all these things you think is has the most potential and why, beyond the fact that it's like, cool and new.
Yeah, no, I'm long on all of these. So the micropayments thing, you guys don't really need to do anything. There are platforms that are emerging to help us get more money as publishers, and they're focused on audience development. So ideally, by doing partnerships with Blendle and Actory, we just go on doing the same thing we're doing, and we actually might make some more money, right? Email newsletters. How many of you already have email newsletters from your? Yeah. So just pay attention to those audiences and how you bring those audiences from just opening your emails to clicking through, if that's what you want them to do. The sound platforms, I can't tell you guys more to do podcasts. You really should experiment with podcasts. It's not hard. It's, if you throw a couple people on the team and spend 6 months or a year experimenting, it's not, you're going to be happy with the result most of the time. And then VR and chat, it just depends on the resources of your organization. But like I said before, I'm really long on VR. It's the future. It's happening right now. A lot of news orgs in the US are paying attention to it. It's a really transformative way to kind of create empathy, especially around really sad news, like what's happening in Syria. And the chat stuff, again, the purpose of me bringing up Outbrain as opposed to saying Dig's chatbot or all these or WhatsApp or specific, is that there are companies who are emerging to help publishers be able to work across platform, right? So I guess the overarching statement would be, don't try to be everything for everyone on every single platform. Find ways to use platforms that exist already that can push you out to all of those platforms. So find the platform at the top that's helping you get to those other places, right? SoundCloud can push your podcast to iTunes. So you don't have to do both things. You can do it in one place and it takes care of it. Chatbots, you do it once and you can push it out through different chat apps. So find a platform above the platforms.
Thanks. Yeah, I thought lots of really interesting inspiration. I had a question about the SoundCloud podcast, because you said that, none of us really knew that SoundCloud was a destination for podcasts. And then you said that you were getting these incredible listens with virtually no promotion. So how do you think users are finding it if most of the people that I know use SoundCloud to share EDM music?
Totally. When we joined with The Economist, we were their first publishing partner ever, and this was back in 2011. So they promoted us as someone to follow when people first signed in. So that was helpful. But the listens are coming both from SoundCloud and from iTunes. So the iTunes downloads are counting as listens on SoundCloud.
Oh.
Right.
Do you tweet them? Do you tweet the SoundCloud links ever?
They don't.
They don't.
They
So it's just
come
all
as
coming
Twitter,
through
yeah.
iTunes and SoundCloud?
Yes. They do share them on Facebook. Yes. With the week, they didn't have a partnership with SoundCloud, and they did promotion and banner ads on their emails and on the site, but they weren't doing much because they weren't sure. It was a long shot to them. They didn't want to spend too much money on it.
So is your theory that people on SoundCloud were looking for news and they just happened to be there?
Yeah, and you can ask them. I mean, The Guardian's on it, The FT's on it, The Economist, The Week. I don't know if BBC. Is BBC on it?
World Service.
Okay. So people are on it, and you tag it like podcasts or news, but you have to ask them. But I would bet that now that they've bought this subscription service it's called SoundCloud Go. It's only in the US right now. I think they're going to push to have more publishers on it, because if people are paying for music, they might want to be paying for podcasts too. So, okay, that's it, guys. Thank you.